Tonight, the foreign policy manifesto causing panic in Europe and optimism in Moscow. As leaders of the UK, Germany, France and Ukraine meet in London, President Zelensky insists he won't hand land to Russia. One by one, Europe's politicians have travelled to the White House to get Donald Trump on side. But the message in his national security strategy is clear. Europe is in decline and must do more to look after itself, and mass migration is more dangerous than Russia. We'll assess what that all means coming up. Plus, 1 year without Bashar al-Assad, but can Syria's new leader turn global goodwill into real change at home?
From Warner Brothers Pictures.
Battle of the streaming giants as Paramount launches a hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers. An awards season has officially begun with one film leading the nominations for the Golden Globes. It's all coming up on The World with me, Dominic Waghorn. Good evening. Here's a question. Has America filed divorce papers with Europe? The White House issued its new national security strategy at the end of last week, and it's a massive break from the past. Instead of America working with its allies against common threats, this is America first, as you'd expect from the Trump administration, or as its critics would say, America alone. It talks of the demise of Europe, saying there's a danger its economic decline is eclipsed by the real and more stark prospect of civilizational erasure. The document says European officials are perched in unstable minority governments, many of which trample on basic principles of democracy to suppress opposition. But when it comes to Russia, where principles of democracy are actually trampled on brutally, well, not a word of condemnation for its aggression against Ukraine. The White House says it wants an expeditious cessation of hostilities in Ukraine, and NATO cannot be a perpetually expanding alliance. No wonder the new strategy is going down a storm in Moscow. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov suggesting the plan aligns with Russia's vision. Not the best backdrop to a meeting in Downing Street between the leaders of Britain, France and Germany and the president of Ukraine. John Sparks was there as they arrived.
The festive trimmings were relegated to the sidelines as Europe's senior leadership team made their way to Downing Street. There was only one thing on the agenda here, and that's Ukraine.
Can this peace plan work, Chancellor?
The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, was first to arrive, his demeanour confident enough as Donald Trump tries to impose a peace deal on Ukraine. President Macron came next, mindful that the Americans are running out of patience. These men have been here before, but the pressure on Ukraine is growing. President Zelensky then followed, a man in an increasingly difficult position. He needs all the friends he can get.
There's a hug for President Zelensky from the British Prime Minister. You know, I think this is mainly presentational. It is a big show of public support for the Ukrainian leader. The Ukrainians are getting battered at the front, and the Americans won't pick up arms for them. So what will the Europeans do? Can they keep Ukraine in the fight?
The display of solidarity came with pre-prepared statements. The British Prime Minister pledging unconditional support.
We stand with Ukraine, and if there's to be a ceasefire, it needs to be a just and lasting ceasefire.
Yet it's not clear what that means in practice. In a telling moment, President Zelensky then acknowledged his country's vulnerabilities.
We can't manage without Americans, things which we can't manage without Europe, and that's why we need to make some important decisions.
The fear that Donald Trump could walk away. But the alternative is also troubling. New US peace proposals may be difficult to stomach.
I'm skeptical about some of the details which we are seeing in the documents coming from the US side, but we have to talk about that.
The American leader may not be across the detail, but he knows how to apply pressure. And we saw him do it after his envoys met the Ukrainians for 3 days of talks.
Russia is I believe, fine with it, but I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it, but he hasn't read it.
Yet these men must grapple with the details of those talks. Does the Donbass go to the Russians? Will Ukraine get a guarantee of future security? For the time being, we got this.
President Zelensky, have you made progress today?
A wry smile and an acknowledgement, perhaps, of the perilous position he's in. John Sparks, Sky News in Westminster.
So Europe trying to act as Donald Trump makes clear the continent has to fend for itself. The government here has been very clear about the threat from Russia, and today the Defence Secretary unveiled plans for a new high-tech force to defend undersea cables and pipelines. Here's the First Sea Lord, Lord General Sir Gwyn Jenkins, explaining why it's needed.
Virtually all our trade, virtually all our data, and virtually all our energy flows either above, on, or under the sea. It is literally our lifeline for both us as an island nation, but also for NATO.
So protecting underwater cables is a crucial part of any nation's ability to defend itself. Our military analyst, Professor Michael Clark, has this analysis.
The government have announced what could become a very big programme of surveillance and protection around Britain's coastal waters and the waters that matter to NATO. It will involve an AI-driven system that will be based as well on drones like this rather crude drone, the Rattler, which has been around for some time, fairly unsophisticated, and much more sophisticated drones like the Fathom, which is a German-built drone, and these could be deployed in high numbers at any depths in swarms of drones to create very dense fields of surveillance. And the reason for all of this is because Britain is replete with pipelines and with cables. And so internet cables, electricity cables, mainline electricity from the European grid, and a lot of internet cables that come in around Land's End and the southwest of the country are really important to the international internet as well as to Britain. And so the idea is that the government will establish an Atlantic net and an Atlantic bastion. And the Atlantic net, as part of a NATO concept, will create a deep surveillance net in the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap, the gap that is the doorway into the deep Atlantic. And that net will be able to catch anything that's coming through. At least we'll know about it. It's legally possible for anything to come through, but at least they will know about it. And then within the Atlantic bastion, more traditional methods of anti-submarine warfare, aircraft and other drones will be used to deal with any threats as they arise. Why are they doing it now? Because there is this increase in the tempo of Russian involvement in British waters. The Yantar, the ship that's been hanging around all of Britain's main hubs for cables and pipelines, has caused some concern. Even more than that, the Russians have a new generation of submarines, and the Khabarovsk is a new type of submarine class like the Belgorod, which are nuclear capable, and they've got a new propulsion system which makes them harder to track and very sophisticated. So all of that means that the government wants to establish a programme, to be a long-term programme, pretty expensive, to deal with a renewed threat around our waters and the waters of NATO.
Well, since Donald Trump returned to the White House, US support for Ukraine has blown hot and cold in a manner that has created chaos for Kyiv's European allies. Speaking to my colleague Yalda Hakim this weekend, the president's son, Donald Jr., described his father's unpredictability as a strength and suggested he may yet walk away from Ukraine and peace talks.
There's probably well over 200,000 Americans that I spoke to directly. And I'd be in a room like this and I'd ask, is Russia-Ukraine a top 3 issue for anyone in the room? Nothing.
But is your hunch that President Trump is going to walk away?
I think he may. What's good about my father and what's unique about my father is you don't know what he's going to do. The fact that he's not predictable, he's not following the playbook of every clown who's, again, been a bureaucrat for decades, you don't know.
Well, earlier I spoke to former US National Security Advisor John Bolton, and I asked him about Donald Trump Jr.'s comments there and what he thinks Donald Trump will do himself next.
I've been of the view that it could happen almost at any moment for quite some time now. In a sense, Donald Trump walking away might be a good thing with two provisos. Number one, that the United States continues supplying military intelligence to Ukraine, which we have the capability of doing, but European NATO members do not. And number two, that we continue selling weapons and ammunition to European NATO members that can pass it along to Ukraine. If Trump walks away with that, then I think there's at least a chance to thwart the Kremlin's efforts to break through Ukrainian resistance. If that's cut off, that would be very serious, however. And with Trump, you never know what walking away means. But his effort here is entirely focused on getting the Nobel Peace Prize. That's what this is about. It's not about American or NATO or Ukrainian security. It's about Donald Trump.
I mean, the perception, if you talk to Western diplomats, is that he can't walk away completely because he would then be seen as a loser. But I think there is a fear that if he takes away military intelligence and is not involved at all, then he's just washed his hands of the conflict. And then if Russia prevails, he can say it's nothing to do with me.
It's perfectly possible for Trump to say, I did everything I could to find a solution between these two parties, and I got Vladimir Putin to agree to a reasonable solution. It's Vladimir Zelensky's fault and the Ukrainians' fault, and blame it on them. And for a lot of his base in this country that are not familiar with the situation in Ukraine, they would believe him.
We've seen the national security strategy come out, and I mean, it's caused a lot of concern over here. Is it effectively in sort of black and white what we've known for a while, which is America simply wants to divorce Europe and run off with Russia?
Well, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. If the first term is any precedent, I don't think Trump has read it. I don't think he will read it. I don't think he cares what's in it. I think what's in it is a version of what people basically around J.D. Vance think the strategy ought to be. And I think it's confused, incoherent, utterly inadequate, and basically wrong. But it doesn't represent Donald Trump's strategy because he doesn't have a strategy.
I mean, you have your differences with the president, but you also know him very well. It baffles people on this side of the Atlantic that he seems to sympathise with Moscow. He seems to give Vladimir Putin the benefit of the doubt whenever he can. Please explain to us what is going on there. Why do you think that is the case, and why has he got it in for Ukraine and apparently for Europe?
Well, remember, Trump is wildly uneducated on history and a lot of issues that normally American presidents, even if they don't know them when they come into office, learn over the first 4 years, if not more quickly. Trump doesn't care about anything like that. He doesn't have a philosophy, and he thinks Putin is his friend. I think he's disappointed that his friend hasn't helped him get a settlement in Ukraine, but he's still a friend. So is Xi Jinping. So is Kim Jong-un of North Korea.
I mean, your guess would be that he's going to last the course. He's going to be impatient with it and frustrated, but he's not going to walk away completely from Ukraine.
My guess is probably not. I think I give Zelensky a lot of credit for, after the debacle in the Oval Office back in February, working to establish a relationship with Trump. It's just that Trump buys a lot of what Vladimir Putin says, that the Ukrainians don't hold the cards. I mean, I think what's working here is not that the Kremlin necessarily has something on Trump. I think Putin is just doing what KGB agents are trained to do, which is assess your interlocutor's vulnerabilities and exploit them. And that's what Putin has done ever since he first met Trump.
I mean, we have this meeting today with Starmer and Mirza Macron with Zelensky in Downing Street. I mean, you're saying that the national security strategy, don't take it too seriously. But when it says things like the danger of Europe's economic decline being eclipsed by the real and more stark prospect of civilizational erasure, those are sentiments held by people high up in the American government. How worried do you think Europe should be by that fact?
Well, I think this is a faction of the Republican Party. I don't think it's anything like majority opinion within the Republican Party or certainly within the population as a whole. My personal view is that Europe, and particularly the European Union, have made a lot of mistakes over the past several decades. And the issue today is, does the future of Europe rest in aligning more closely with China, which some people believe for business reasons, or more closely with the United States? It's the inability of Europe, I think, to understand the bigger picture here that is part of the problem. I think it's important not to believe that Trump represents the future of American policy forever, because it does not. And I think it's important that as frustrated as many in Europe may be, you don't make the mistake of saying the United States is hopeless. But we're now at the point where you can safely say he's got 3 years to go, and then that's it.
While we have you, there's a lot of concern, obviously, here about Venezuela. I think you've said that don't be too worried about this. Donald Trump doesn't really have a Venezuelan strategy. But is there a danger, do you think, with so much American naval firepower off the coast, that a war could almost happen by mistake?
Well, I think Trump's made a complete mess of this situation. There's no doubt about it. He put the gun on the table by bringing the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group from the European theater to the Caribbean. If he doesn't use it, if he just sends it back, he looks very foolish. On the other hand, if he uses it and doesn't overthrow Maduro, he looks foolish there. There are constituencies in the country, Venezuelan Americans, Cuban Americans, that strongly believe Maduro should go. I agree with that. But Trump has a strong MAGA base that says, hey, I thought we voted for you to end the endless wars. Where's this endless war in Venezuela come from?
Well, the British Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper's in Washington for talks with her US counterpart Marco Rubio tonight.
Foreign Secretary, do you trust the Americans on Ukraine?
The pair posed for photographs at the State Department, but ignored questions from journalists before walking away for private talks. Our US correspondent Mark Stone is watching that for us in Washington, and he's been listening to what John Bolton had to say. Mark, first of all, we heard from President Zelensky saying that Ukraine's not going to cede land. John Bolton there saying don't be too worried about Donald Trump. He probably hasn't read this document, but do you think there is enough there for Europe to be seriously worried about in what the White House is saying this evening, last week in this document, and what it's been saying since?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely I do, because the writing has been on the wall for many, many months, and the writing is now literally on the paper of this document. Look, I asked Yvette Cooper there whether Europe can trust America on Ukraine. And then I followed up with saying, can they trust America on anything? Because that is the situation that we are now in black and white in this document. Now, you can look at this document that was published overnight, Thursday into Friday, which didn't get a huge amount of pickup initially. You can look at it simply as a sort of policy wonk document that every administration kind of publishes as part of the furniture of their administration. Or you can look at this one and say, well, actually, is it not just what we've seen play out over the course of the past 9 months, but written down? And I think the answer is yes, it is exactly that. I agree with John Bolton that it is incoherent in places. I mean, it talks about an America First agenda where no longer will it be the case that America will try to impose its ideology and its liberty and its freedoms on other parts of the world. And yet it also says, almost within the same breath, but in Europe, we will impose our own vision of what we think should happen. And it goes into detail about civilizational erasure, as you pointed out, and it talks about support for nationalist right-wing parties across Europe. So it will actively, the American administration will actively support the AfD in Germany, Reform in the UK, the National Rally in France. This is absolutely extraordinary stuff for a nation that has always said it would not interfere in the domestic politics of allies. Well, now it is doing just that. It's pretty remarkable. And on that, I would kind of disagree with John Bolton that I think, you know, as I say, what we have seen in this document is kind of a sort of penny drop moment, and should be a penny drop moment for European governments of what has been happening over the course of the past 9 months. And if John Bolton thinks that Donald Trump hasn't read it, that well may be the case. But Donald Trump is being advised by people like J.D. Vance, who could be the next president, on just this issue. And Trump was asked about Europe an hour or so ago. Have a listen to his assessment of the state of Europe.
Europe has to be very careful. They're doing a lot of things. We want to keep Europe Europe. Europe is going in some bad directions. It's very bad for the people. We don't want Europe to change so much. They're going in some very bad directions.
Mark, what about Ambassador Bolton's claim point there, really, that also that it is a very factional government? And we've also heard from Congress, I think, over the weekend with another long document beginning with N, which is kind of at odds with what the White House has put out. So, you know, there are various factions sort of fighting for the president's mind, if you like, aren't there? And it's hard to know Which one's going to win?
Well, look, I think at the moment, as we come to the end of 2025, that it is so clear that Donald Trump is carrying out land grabs, power grabs, not just around America, but around the world as well. This is his fiefdom right now. So it may well be the case that individual senators, congresspeople in different rooms in the building over the road from here have different views. But right now, it is Donald Trump calling the shots. And it's clear from the fact that the Europeans are struggling to know where they stand with America on Ukraine, that this is a deeply alarming time for Europe.
Mark Stone in Washington, thank you as ever. You're watching The World. Still to come. Celebrations in Syria on the first anniversary of the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. We'll examine the country's roads to recovery.
If you have a picture in your head of how the global economy works, it probably looks a bit like this. Container ships, ports, goods transported around the world. This is globalization. The heartbeat of commerce around us. The invisible force keeping us supplied with essentials and trinkets. So what happens when you try to turn this world upside down? This is the inside story of how the world economy really works and what's really happening at the front line of Donald Trump's trade war.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening question is why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Rich and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome back. Well, Syrians have been celebrating as the country marks the first anniversary of the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad following decades of brutal rule. The former president clung to power through a civil war that went on for almost 14 years and killed around 500,000 people. He fled to Russia last year as rebels took Damascus in a lightning offensive. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons reports on a battered country struggling to rebuild.
The military are once again on the streets of Damascus, but this time it's a celebration. A year since Bashar al-Assad was deposed, a year since Syria's isolation started to come to an end. There is a new sense of optimism here and a new leader.
The people granted us their trust after years of oppression and injustice. They entrusted us with responsibility. Let our motto be honesty and our promise, rebuilding.
This was al-Shara a year ago. He had just led his rebel force to victory. Back then he was known by the name Abu Muhammad al-Julani, a former al-Qaeda fighter. America had put a $10 million price on his head. Now that bounty has been removed, the president has gone back to his family name, and he has new friends around the world, including the American leader.
He's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him. The new president of Syria.
International acceptance has bolstered al-Shara's reputation. But Syria is still a deeply divided country. Large parts remain outside his control. Like here, Suwaida, where clashes embroil Bedouin, Druze, Syrian and Israeli forces. This country is pockmarked by pockets of conflict. And nor have the nationwide scars of Syria's long civil war faded. Its rebuilding will cost fortunes, and there is little sign of other nations offering the money.
The challenges are very significant. The country is heavily destroyed by the war. Shelter in particular is a challenge. More than 1 in 3 homes are uninhabitable, and communities need rebuilding from the ground up.
Syria is a calmer, safer place now, but the economy is still stuttering and the euphoria of regime change is giving way to optimism tempered by reality.
The situation is 50% better. There's security and we can go anywhere comfortably. But some things are still lacking. Like financially, for example, we need them to bring down taxes.
The situation has become better. There's more freedom, there's more peace of mind. You can leave your house and come back safely. New goods we didn't have before have now entered the country. The electricity used to be almost non-existent.
A year ago, Syria emerged from decades of dictatorship and subjugation and confronted the traumatic horrors of the Assad regime. Now it has an even harder task: to build a new nation on the rubble of the old one. Adam Parsons, Sky News.
Well, part of the legacy of that civil war have been landmines and unexploded munitions injuring and hurting many people. The Halo Trust estimates that more than 1,600 people have been killed by explosives since the fall of the Assad regime. The charity is working to make towns and villages safe as people return home following the war. I spoke to Halo's programme manager for Syria, Simon Jackson, about the challenges his team faces.
Yes, obviously a year now since the fall of the Assad regime, we've seen a lot of change. As the Halo Trust in particular, we've been able to expand our operations across most of the country, certainly the areas controlled by the current transition government. And we've been able to discover actually the extent of contamination is much, much bigger than we would have imagined. Almost 14 years of war has left the land littered with landmines, littered with unexploded ordnance, and littered with improvised explosive devices. We have had over 1,600 casualties from explosive accidents. Almost 600 of those have been killed, and more than 1 in 3 of the casualties have been children.
So these are children or adults just out in the countryside picking something up they shouldn't, or treading on something that they didn't know was there?
So there is a real mix. The landmines that tend to be buried, and indeed improvised explosive devices used as landmines, that's usually somebody stepping on something that they don't know is there. Quite often that is in the rural areas. You have farmers returning to try and return their land to productive use, or indeed shepherds grazing their flocks. But you also have, in and amongst the rubble and the fields, you have unexploded ordnance. These are items that have been used in battle but haven't functioned correctly. And actually, one of the most dangerous types of those is cluster submunitions. Quite often, children see quite shiny-looking ball-shaped objects. These are very sensitive, and they pick them up. You know, the natural curiosity of children, they pick them up, and it's causing death and injury in the fields and in the cities.
And then presumably, if they're poor, then if it's the one of the parents, it's one of the main breadwinners, it could have a disastrous impact on the family. Give us an idea how much you've cleared and how much you think is left. Any sort of idea what percentage you've got of a task ahead?
It's really hard to say what percentage we have to do. We estimate the front line, which was breached by the forces that eventually overthrew Assad. We estimate that to be around 200 kilometres long, and that looks like about 200 square kilometres worth of land that potentially has quite dense mixed landmines in it, and that's not to mention the explosive ordnance that is left after battles. Then you have numerous cities that have been destroyed, in neighbourhoods, even here in Damascus, that are just littered with all kinds of munitions.
Yeah, give us an idea. Obviously, we've seen this problem after pretty much any conflict, and this civil war went on for 14 years, didn't it? Give us an idea, how does it compare to some of the other worst cases of landmine and unexploded munitions that we've seen following other civil wars and other wars?
So currently, Syria is assessed to be the second worst affected country behind Myanmar for landmine contamination. And certainly there is potentially decades of work to be done to clean up that mess of explosive remnants of war. However, I would say that the Syrian people are interested and capable of helping themselves. And I would be hopeful that with the right investment from the international community early on in this cleanup and rebuilding effort, Syria would be able to take over responsibility for its own problems much more quickly than perhaps other countries have been able to in the past.
This is The World. Next up, a major move in the battle of the streamers. Paramount mounts a hostile bid and a deal that could reshape the entertainment landscape.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
To the US now, where there's been a dramatic plot twist in the battle for the future of the film industry. Paramount has launched a hostile takeover bid worth more than $100 billion for Warner Brothers Discovery. It challenges Netflix, which reached an $83 billion deal with the company on Friday. The takeover would include a vast library of film and TV, including some of the biggest titles in movie history.
You are, of course, wondering why I have brought you here tonight.
Actually, sir, after all these years, I just sort of go with it.
Take my arm.
Our hotel is the best in the world. At the end of the week, you will be an entirely different person.
I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms. And I will.
Paramount's bid includes financing from an investment firm run by Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and several Middle East funds. The company's chief executive says he's had good conversations with the US president about the planned takeover. Well, joining me now are investment director at AJ Bell, Russ Mould, and Simon Gallagher, a former strategy and content acquisition executive at Hulu and Netflix, who's now the managing director at SPG Global, an entertainment consulting firm. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I think people out there are excited by this, but also worried about it. Let's ask you, first of all, Russ, what's the latest sort of surprise move now? We have Paramount entering the fray. What's the latest on that?
No, I mean, Paramount have been sniffing around for 3 or 4 months, and so they've made several offers, all of which have been rejected by the target, and so they've now come back in with a hostile bid rather than the one that Netflix had put through, which had been recommended. So now with Netflix board have said they're going to wait, they're going to assess both offers. They've already accepted one, they're going to assess both, and then let their shareholders know what they would recommend in 10 days' time. And after that, the shareholders will probably get a chance to have a vote and decide where they would like the money to come from if indeed the deal goes through at all.
Simon, you worked at Netflix and you were part of the team acquiring content. If Netflix were to win, what's at stake here, do you think, for consumers at home? If Netflix wins, is it more binge-worthy box sets but fewer movies at the cinema? And is it the converse if Paramount succeed?
No, I think if Netflix succeeds, you'll see probably more tiered programming. So perhaps a more premium tier with some of the HBO content in there. There may even be, and I'm guessing at this, but there may even be discounted movie ticket access or preferred relationships with some of the theatrical distributors, given the power that they'll hold not just in the streaming space, but also in the theatrical market.
But Netflix doesn't have a great reputation, does it, for sort of supporting cinematic movies and supporting cinemas? Is that fair, do you think? And is that going to translate through to damage the film industry if Netflix were to win, and certainly in terms of movie theatres?
Sure. Look, there's plenty of movies in the theaters at the moment, but people are it's just not resonating in the same way. People are consuming content a lot more at home. That said, I don't think if Netflix was to win the bid, I do not expect that you're going to see them all of a sudden pull Warner Brothers movies out of theaters. They may refine the release schedule, but I don't think you're going to see a diminishment of the number of films that Warner Brothers releases annually in theaters.
Russ, it's currently a 2-horse race. Who knows? You might end up with a third one entering the race. But at the moment, you've got Netflix, and Donald Trump, at the end of last week, I think, said there were problems with that takeover bid. And on the other hand, it looks like his son-in-law is involved in the rival bid. So given what we know about this White House, does that put Paramount ahead, do you think?
Well, the president has said today he's not friends with Paramount, so he has been, in that respect, relatively objective. At the moment, you would suggest that it's the Netflix bid that's in the box seat because they have that recommended by the Warner Brothers Discovery Board to Warner Brothers shareholders. So at the moment, Netflix have the inside track, but as you say, there are some very powerful backers on the other side, and maybe money will speak, given that the Paramount bid is bigger and it's all cash, whereas the Netflix bid comes an element of shares. Although some shareholders may decide that Netflix shares are a good bet for the long run, and they'd be happy to accept that.
And do you have a view, Russ, on what's going to be better for the consumer in terms of these two rival bids?
I think they're going to. I mean, regulators, I'm sure, will have a look at this. Whoever wins. I mean, already Netflix have got this inside track with Warner Brothers, because Warner's said that the agreement that they struck was much more to the satisfaction of the Warner Brothers management team, and they have already offered guarantees, as Simon was saying, on things like theatrical releases in cinemas and maintaining cinema schedules. But they will have to tread carefully. Regulators will take a look, and Netflix has said, even if their bid were to prevail, they'd probably expect it to take 12 to 18 months before regulators in America and perhaps around the world were to give it the all clear. But I think they probably would, because I'm sure Netflix or Paramount would argue, look, this isn't just about television and cinema, it's about online, it's about social media, it's about short form video, and they would argue there's lots more competition there than meets the eye at first glance.
Simon, Netflix has gone such a long distance, isn't it, from when it was just sending out DVDs in the post. I remember those beginnings when I was living in America 10 or 15 years ago, to this sort of massive giant now, potentially gobbling up this sort of powerhouse of movies, Warner Brothers, and I guess it's hard to predict where it will go next. But what kind of trajectory is it on, do you think, if it's able to pull this off?
Look, they're already in 300 million subscribers around the world, so the trajectory has been very strong. But they still don't have the amount of viewing hours that YouTube is securing around the world on a daily basis. So there's still an audience out there for them to find, and I absolutely think that the premium nature of the HBO and the Warner Brothers content will help them perhaps not drive up subscriber numbers as much, but maybe drive up the levels of engagement from each subscriber, which then reduces churn, so makes it a much healthier business.
And you've worked there. In its DNA, do you think, is it as committed to movies and making them as HBO and Warner Brothers have always been?
Absolutely. They are about satisfying the customer, and customer still enjoys movies, still enjoys tentpole movies, still enjoys the excitement of going to the cinema. So I don't think you'll see their appetite to produce premium tentpole type movies diminish in the slightest.
But obviously the big fear out there is that, as these big giants swallow each other up, you end up with a monopoly. That's bad for consumers. Prices go up. How can you both, starting with you, Russ, how can you sort of reassure people that's not going to be the case?
I think, again, the regulators would be a very, very important consideration there. There is, again, no shortage of different formats and different forms of competition. I wouldn't want to promise over the very long run what was to happen to cinema audiences, because they're under extreme pressure already. But I think regulators will be taking a very, very close interest in this one. And
do you think cinemas are safe? Is this going to be good for cinemas if a company that has traditionally been all about serving up movies at home does win the race?
I can guarantee you it won't stop me going to the cinema. I absolutely love it.
What about you, Simon? And the other question, I suppose, is AI. Are either of these companies better placed to take advantage of AI, possibly in a bad way, and cut costs with it?
So on the AI point, look, Netflix is at its DNA a tech company that grew out of Silicon Valley. So they will absolutely be looking to leverage AI in the best way to deliver content and serve that up to consumers. On the flip side, David Ellison's father founded Oracle, so enormous tech background within the family and with the associated companies. So I think on either front, they're both in very safe hands relative to AI and leveraging AI moving forward.
And who do you think is going to win, Simon? Is it the Ellison name and the Kushner name, or is it sort of the power of Netflix?
I believe it will be Netflix. I think the the Warner Brothers board has looked at this. They've made a thoughtful and deliberate decision. And they've seen data points and information that we're not privy to. And I think they've made the right decision, and Netflix will end up winning the day. But it's going to be a long, drawn-out process.
And that's not because you used to work for them?
No, not at all.
Russ, what do you think? Who's going to win this?
Biggest winner already, Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders. The stock was languishing at $7 a share just over a year ago. Now it's at $27. So it looks like a deal is going to go through. They're the winners. This was a deal that was being heavily criticised as the merger that created that company 3 or 4 years ago is being heavily criticised. All right, now the company may be split up and broken up, but there already is a clear winner there.
Well, it's fascinating to talk to you both. You both sound fairly optimistic about the industry, and you know, whoever wins this contest, you seem to think it's going to end well for consumers. So great to get your insights, gentlemen, and we'll see which company is the best company that wins. Thank you. This is The World. Next up, Warner Brothers' significance as a giant in media is further underlined as one of its films leads nominations at the Golden Globes.
Hello and welcome.
Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Huge questions to be grappled with.
No, this is really important.
Sophie, it's important.
But you asked me a direct question, so I'll give you a direct answer.
The big stories you want to know about, the big interviews as well.
We need to be able to tell our story.
Your heart stops.
Very briefly, it did, yes.
A real treat. Morning, Will.
That needs looking at.
Cheat Sheet, the podcast that gets you up to speed.
And we're going to bring all of it to you in 10 minutes. Can you do a bit of Kostama for us?
Did you know his father's a toolmaker? My father's a toolmaker.
Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch, wait. Right, we're going to get in. Right, get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera, turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
That is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist. Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
Well, let's kick off.
And make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs?
He's coming out! What more do you need?
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcasts. The trauma for everyone who witnessed what happened here hasn't gone away.
Devastation.
Greg Milam, Sky News, Manchester.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report, and this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway.
Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back. Well, we've been discussing the battle to buy Warner Brothers and the media giant stature was further underlined today at the Golden Globes, where a film it distributes, one battle after another, is leading this year's nominations. Paul Thomas Anderson's counterculture epic received 9 nods, including Best Director and Leading Actor for Leonardo DiCaprio. Our arts entertainment correspondent, Katie Spencer, has more on those in contention.
Leonardo DiCaprio's film about the kidnap of a former revolutionary's daughter is fast emerging as the movie to beat this year, with one battle after another leading the field with its 9 Globe nominations. While DiCaprio, of course, has been here for his acting many times before, the Best Actor category isn't always such an A-list affair as it is this time around, as he goes head-to-head with George Clooney, who plays a washed-up Hollywood star in Jake Kelly. Not forgetting Timothée Chalamet, one of the darlings of last year's award season, nominated this time for his role as a swaggering ping-pong hustler in Marty Supreme.
That place in your head is now more real to you than anywhere else.
I am myself indifferent on it.
In terms of Irish success, recognition for the performances of both Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley in Hamnet, which is up for 6. A drama which reimagines the story of how Shakespeare and his wife grieved the death of their son. Arguably, the big shocker was how the biggest musical of the year, the conclusion of Wicked, isn't nominated in the Best Musical category. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are up for acting awards, but overall, the film just didn't make that shortlist.
Do you know a girl called Katie Leonard?
As for the Globe's TV categories, this year they're awash with British talent. Young Owen Cooper nominated again for his role in Adolescence, playing a young boy who stabs his female classmate. The drama is up for 5 in total. Amy Lou Wood and Jason Isaacs are both nominated for Sky Atlantic's The White Lotus. And Helen Mirren, Bella Ramsey, Gary Oldman and Jude Law are also in the running.
It's time.
And one to watch out for, ironically, as it's the most watched film on Netflix ever, is K-pop Demon Hunters. From young kids demanding its dressing up outfits and knowing all of the songs, the runaway hit is up for 3 Globes. And you could say its Oscar campaign begins here. From snubbed witches to a heady mix of Hollywood royalty, the question is, will this award season be one battle after another, or might we just see a supreme upset?
We've spoken a lot on this programme about the death of Hind Rajab, a 5-year-old girl who was killed alongside 6 members of a family in a car while trying to escape the fighting in Gaza City last year. A docudrama about her death has been nominated in the Best Non-English Language Film category.
شو اسمك انتي؟
The voice of Hind Rajab follows the true events leading up to Hind's killing in January 2024. The film features real audio of a phone call made by the 5-year-old to the Palestine Red Crescent after surviving an attack on her family's car. She died without ever getting help because the paramedics sent to her aid were also killed. Now the film about her life and death is being recognised.
Can you imagine that? So do something.
Well, that's all from us on The World for tonight. More, no doubt, on what Yvette Cooper's doing in Washington, what Donald Trump is saying about Europe, Russia and Ukraine, and more from us tomorrow. More foreign news. News at 10 is next with the rest of today's news. Do stay with us.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello, and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Rich and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?